Have you ever heard of Alvarado Street? It's just another suburban road. Quiet, cracked sidewalks, old fences, nothing unusual. But at the very end of that street, there's a house nobody talks about, and no one dares to enter. But a few months ago, 3 people did. They went in with cameras, looking for views. They were never the same again. It was a Friday night. Tomas, Helena, and Paul met at the front gate. Laughing, joking, backpacks on, flashlights ready. The front door? Slightly open. No lights. No sound. No furniture. Only one thing greeted them. Cold, heavy air. And the smell, like wet wood and old graves. "This is it," Tomas whispered to the camera. "We're inside the haunted house of Alvarado Street." They were still smiling then. They had no idea what was coming. On the second floor, they found a door, locked with chains, but the chains were bolted from inside the room. Why would someone chain a door from the inside? Helena asked. Suddenly, the door rattled. A deep, muffled scream came from behind it. They froze. Still, they kept going. In the basement, they found a dusty chair, an eyeless doll, and a small leather notebook. Most of the pages were torn out, except one. If you've come this far, you can still leave. But if you keep going, the house will know your name. They laughed it off. But then, footsteps, heavy, upstairs. They weren't alone anymore. Toma's flashlight flickered. Helena dropped the notebook. Paul stood silent, staring at the staircase. At the top, a shadow, tall, still, watching. They ran up the stairs, across the hallway, only to realize the house had changed. The hallway was longer now, endless. The front door? Gone. The windows? Bricked over. And behind them, the shadows multiplied. The voices came next. From the floorboards, from the walls, from the ceiling, each whisper louder than the last, calling each of them by name. Tomas. Paul. Helena. Paul vanished first. No sound. No scream. Just gone. Then Helena, dragged into the chained room. Her scream was cut off like a wire snapping. Tomas was alone, breathing hard, shaking, and still filming. Two days later, the police found the house open. Inside, only one thing: the camera. The video was intact, but none of their faces appeared. Only blurred silhouettes, whispers, darkness, and a pair of red eyes, blinking slowly in every frame. The video was never meant to be seen, but somehow, it ended up online. And now, people say, if you watch it to the end, you'll hear your name being whispered behind your front door. No one lives on Alvarado Street anymore. And sometimes late at night, a red light still flickers in the window, as if someone's still recording, still waiting.
Apartment 313 had been empty for nearly 2 years. Most of the neighbors claimed it was just another old unit in a crumbling building downtown. But those who had lived there long enough knew better. People heard things, low murmurs, footsteps behind walls, and sometimes knocking. No one stayed there longer than a month. Some left without taking their things. One tenant simply vanished, leaving the door locked from the inside. So when Elijah moved into 300 313, people watched him closely, quietly. He was a writer, new to the city, looking for silence and cheap rent. He had no idea what he was walking into. Elijah's first week was uneventful. The apartment was small and dusty, but manageable. It had a long hallway, one bedroom, a narrow kitchen, and a window that barely opened. He spent his days unpacking books and typing in silence. But every night, exactly at 3:13 a.m., he woke up. No sound, no alarm, just wide awake. On the fifth night, he heard it. A soft knock. Not at the front door, not on the walls, from inside the apartment. He got up, grabbed his phone, checked each room. Nothing. He told himself it was a pipe. Maybe the neighbors, maybe his imagination. But the next night, he heard it again. 3 knocks. He followed the sound and ended up in the hallway. And that's when he noticed something strange. The wall had a faint outline, like the shape of a door that had been plastered over and painted to match. A door that wasn't supposed to be there. Curious, Elijah tapped on the wall. Hollow. He pressed his ear to it. Silence. Another knock. But this time, from the other side. He stumbled back. At first, he thought it was part of the building's old design. Maybe a closet sealed off. But when he asked the landlord the next day, the old man went pale. "There's no door," he said. "That part of the building was walled in years ago." "Why?" "Because some things," he said, lowering his voice, "should stay sealed." Elijah laughed it off, until the door started appearing in his dreams. Every night, the same hallway, the same knocks, the same whisper. "Open it." He stopped sleeping, barely ate. His writing slowed. One night, at 3:13 a.m., he sat in front of the wall with a chisel and a flashlight. He shouldn't have, but he did. He tore through the drywall for hours. Beneath it, a real door. Old, wooden, iron latch. It smelled like rot. He hesitated, but when he placed his hand on the knob, it turned, easily. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow stairwell leading downward. Impossible! His apartment was on the 3rd floor, and yet the stairs went down. He grabbed a jacket, a flashlight, and descended. Each step creaked. The air was cold and wet, like a basement after a flood. At the bottom was a single room, bare walls, no furniture, just a mirror on the far side. Old, dust, cracked, and something standing behind him in the reflection. He turned. Nothing. He turned back. The reflection was smiling. Not him. It started moving forward. Elijah ran. Up the stairs, through the door, slammed it shut. But the hallway had changed. It wasn't his apartment anymore. The walls were darker, longer, stretched out. The windows were gone. He ran door to door, all locked. Behind him, the floor creaked. 1 step, 2. He turned. No one. Then he heard whispering, not in words, but in feelings. It told him, "You shouldn't have opened it." He backed away and fell through his front door and landed hard on the floor of his real apartment. The plaster was back. No sign of a door, except the chisel, still bloody. That was 3 weeks ago. Elijah moved out, left the city, But the dreams haven't stopped. And now, no matter where he goes, he wakes up at 3:13 a.m. Sometimes he hears knocking. Other times, he sees faint outlines on the walls. But the worst is the reflection in the mirror, because sometimes it moves before he does.
This is not a story about ghosts. Not in the traditional sense. It's about something worse. Something that hides in plain sight. Something that watches from inside the walls. My name is Lena. And for the longest time, I thought I lived alone. I had just turned 27 when I moved into apartment 204. It was my first place on my own. A small, outdated unit in an old building downtown. The kind of place that creaks when you breathe and smells like paint that gave up years ago. But it was mine. And I loved it. The first few nights were peaceful. A little cold, a little too quiet, but nothing unusual. Until the scratching started. At first, I thought it was rats. The walls would tick and click around 2 a.m. Always from the same spot, near the far corner of my bedroom. I called the landlord. He checked for pests, holes, anything. Clean as a whistle, he said. Old buildings talk. You'll get used to it. But I didn't. Because one night, the sound moved. It was a Thursday. I remember because I had fallen asleep editing late. At 2:16 a.m., I woke up to scratching again, only this time, it wasn't coming from the corner. It was behind my headboard. Then the wall behind my dresser. Then the wall beside my bed. The scratching was moving. Following me. I sat up, heart racing. I placed my hand on the wall. Silence. And then 3 knocks. From the inside. I screamed. Ran to the kitchen and called my mom. She said I was dreaming. That stress could cause audio hallucinations. I wanted to believe her. I went back to bed with all the lights on. 2 days later, I found the hole. It was small, behind the dresser. Just big enough to peek through. And on the other side, darkness. I should have left it alone. But curiosity wins over fear more often than we admit. I grabbed my phone flashlight and shone it inside. Nothing at first. Then, wood. Old wallpaper. And a glint of something reflective. I leaned closer, squinting. And that's when I saw it. A pair of eyes. Human. Blinking. Looking right back at me. I fell backward and screamed so loud my upstairs neighbor came down in a robe. The cops came. They searched the walls and confirmed there was indeed a crawl space between the units. A forgotten part of the original design, never sealed properly. But they found no one. No signs of forced entry. No threat, they said. Just maybe a homeless guy who broke in and left. Happens. They offered no cameras. No follow-up. I didn't sleep for days. I put furniture in front of the hole. Slept on the couch. And told myself it was over. But then, things started disappearing. My cereal box was empty, though I'd barely touched it. The batteries in my remote were replaced with dead ones. My toothbrush was wet before I even used it. And one night, I woke up to the sound of running water. The bathroom sink was on. That's when I started suspecting. Someone was living inside my walls. I bought a camera. A cheap motion sensor one from a local store. I placed it facing the hallway. The next morning, I checked the footage. Around 3:08 a.m., the bedroom door opened. Slowly. From the darkness, a man stepped out. Thin. Pale. Wearing a torn jacket. Eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in weeks. He walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and drank directly from the milk carton. Then he turned toward the camera and smiled. I ran, drove to my friend's house across the city and showed her the footage. She begged me to call the cops. I did. But when we returned, nothing was there. The crawl space was sealed. The footage was inconclusive. They accused me of staging it. I tried to break my lease. The landlord refused. "You've been here too long," he said. "You're responsible for the full year." So I stayed. But I changed. I stopped sleeping. I ate less. I listened constantly. I started talking through the walls, asking why, begging him to leave. Sometimes I'd hear soft breathing. Other times, a giggle. One morning, I found writing on my mirror. "I like you better when you sleep." I scrubbed it off. It came back the next night. Different message. "You shouldn't have looked." That day, I packed everything. I didn't care about the lease. I didn't care about the money. But when I tried to leave, the front door wouldn't open. The lock spun freely, like it was broken. My windows wouldn't budge. My phone had no signal. I was trapped. In desperation, I broke down the wall, tore open the crawl space. Inside were drawings. Hundreds of them. Childlike scribbles of me, sleeping, eating, brushing my teeth. The walls were covered in them. At the back of the space was a mattress. Old, filthy. And a journal. I opened it. Day 218, she smiled at me today. Day 343, she yelled again. I don't like that. Day 511, she's trying to leave. I can't let her. I dropped it and turned. He was behind me. I don't remember much after that. I woke up in the hospital. They said I collapsed in my apartment. That I was dehydrated and delirious. But my walls had been torn apart. The journal was gone. No one found the man. I moved across the country. Changed everything. But some nights, I still hear scratching. And once, last week, I found writing on my mirror. Nice place. Mind if I stay in the walls?